Admiral Vextar sat in the conference room of his captured flagship, staring across the table at the human who had orchestrated his defeat. General Patricia Hayes had spent the last 40 years of her life preparing for this single conversation. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but Vextar could sense the deadly intelligence that made her one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Patricia had been 25 years old when the first Zephyrian spy probes entered the solar system. She had devoted her entire adult life to studying alien psychology and preparing humanity's response to eventual invasion. Every detail of the massive deception had been planned in her underground offices beneath the mountains of North America. She told Vextar that his species had been conquering weaker civilizations for over 1,000 years. They had gotten comfortable with easy victories against enemies who could not match their technology or tactical knowledge. This comfort had made them careless and overconfident. That overconfidence had led them into the most elaborate trap in galactic history. The surviving Zephyrians had been allowed to keep one ship from their original fleet of 200 vessels. The cruiser Vengeance had been repaired using human technology and loaded with complete records of the battle. Every moment of the conflict had been recorded from multiple angles, showing exactly how the primitive humans had destroyed a modern military force. Captain Doug Miller had spent 15 years traveling between star systems as a trade representative, trying to establish peaceful contact with alien civilizations. The Zephyrians and other species had seen him as a naive human who believed that friendship and cooperation could solve any problem. They had dismissed his peace missions as the foolish dreams of a weak species. Doug had actually been gathering intelligence on alien military capabilities, while convincing them that humanity posed no threat. His trade missions had been reconnaissance operations, mapping enemy bases, and studying their weapons technology. His peaceful speeches had been psychological warfare, designed to make aliens underestimate human capabilities. Now, Doug stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as the surviving Zephyrians prepared to depart. He delivered the final message that would change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. He told the aliens exactly what was going to happen. When they returned to their home empire, they were going to show their leaders the battle recordings. They were going to explain how a primitive species had destroyed their invasion fleet using weapons that seemed impossible. They were going to describe how humans had turned their entire star system into a fortress that could defend against any attack. Most importantly, they were going to tell their government that humanity was no longer pretending to be peaceful. The message was more than just a warning to the Zephyrian Empire. Other alien civilizations throughout the galaxy monitored military communications and would intercept the transmission. Within weeks, every major power would know that the species they had dismissed as harmless had revealed themselves as apex predators. General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center that had been hidden beneath a civilian research facility. For 3 decades, banks of screens showed human military units throughout the galaxy receiving new orders. The age of hiding was over. The age of human expansion was beginning. She sent a coded message to all human forces in every star system. Operation Sleeping Giant was officially complete. Humanity would no longer disguise their capabilities or pretend to be weak. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could accomplish when they stopped holding back. Captain Steve Martinez watched the lone Zephyrian ship limp away from Earth's solar system. His fleet had taken minimal casualties while destroying one of the most powerful military forces in known space. The victory had been so complete that other alien empires would think twice before challenging human territory. Steve knew that this battle was just the beginning. Humanity had been preparing for defense, but their technology and tactics would work just as well for conquest. The species that had pretended to be peaceful explorers was about to become the most feared military power in the galaxy. Dr. Amy Chen stood in her communication center, no longer pretending to be a frightened civilian. She began broadcasting new messages to alien civilizations throughout local space. The transmissions explained that humanity was now actively seeking contact with other species. But the terms had changed dramatically. Any species that approached human space with peaceful intentions would be welcomed and treated with respect. Any species that approached with hostile intent would be destroyed without mercy or negotiation. The choice was entirely up to the visitors. Commander Nick Thompson led his task force back toward Earth, his ships loaded with captured Zephyrian technology and prisoners. Human scientists would study the alien weapons and ships to improve their own military capabilities. The prisoners would be questioned to gather intelligence about other potential enemies. Nick knew that the galaxy contained dozens of aggressive species, like the Zephyrians. Each one would need to receive the same message that had just been delivered. Humanity was no longer hiding, and they were no longer defenseless. The asteroid belt continued to reveal new weapons platforms as human engineers dropped their disguises. Mining stations transformed into weapons factories. Research outposts revealed themselves as military bases. Cargo haulers shed their fake hulls and emerged as warships. Captain Rose Williams expanded production at her facility inside Ceres. The factory would now build ships for exploration and conquest rather than just defense. Human fleets would carry the species to new star systems, spreading their influence throughout the galaxy. Admiral Vextar watched his home star grow larger as the damaged Vengeance approached Zephyrian space. He would have to explain to his superiors how the most powerful invasion fleet in their history had been destroyed by a species they had considered primitive. He would have to tell them that the humans were coming, and that nothing in the Zephyrian arsenal could stop them. The recording devices in the Vengeance's computer systems contained terabytes of data showing human weapons and tactics in action. Military analysts throughout the galaxy would study these records, trying to understand how such an advanced civilization had remained hidden for so long. They would learn that patience could be a weapon, that appearing weak while building strength was a strategy that could defeat any enemy, that the most dangerous predators in the universe were the ones who looked peaceful until it was too late to escape. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had announced their presence with fire and steel, and every species in known space would have to decide whether they wanted to be friends or enemies of the apex predators from Earth. The message was clear and simple. Humans were no longer pretending to be defenseless, and the age of easy conquest was over. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Half of his invasion fleet was gone, destroyed by weapons that should not have existed. The remaining ships were scattered and damaged, their crews panicking as human vessels hunted them through the solar system. The Admiral gave the order that he had never expected to give. He told his surviving captains to retreat immediately and prepare for emergency faster than light travel. The Zephyrian ships turned away from Earth and accelerated toward the edge of the solar system, where their jump drives could safely engage. They jettisoned cargo and unnecessary equipment to reduce weight and increase speed. Some captains even began venting atmosphere from damaged sections to squeeze out a few more kilometers per second of velocity. Admiral Vexta thought he might actually escape with some of his fleet intact. He was wrong. Commander Nick Thompson had been waiting for exactly this moment. His task force had been positioned at the very edge of the solar system for weeks, cloaked and silent. The ships had been running on minimal power to avoid detection, their crews living in near-freezing conditions to reduce their heat signatures. When the fleeing Zephyrians reached what they thought was open space, Nick's ships revealed themselves and opened fire. The aliens found themselves trapped between the advancing human fleet from the inner system and a wall of enemy vessels blocking their escape route. Nick opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian flagship. He told Admiral Vexter that he had come to this system looking for easy prey. Instead, he had found the most dangerous predator species in the galaxy. Now, he was going to carry that message back to his home empire, assuming any of his ships survived the next few hours. The human fleet moved with the coordination of a pack of wolves hunting wounded prey. Captain Karen Davis led her squadron in attack runs from impossible angles, using the gravity wells of planets to slingshot her ships at incredible speeds. Her fighters moved in patterns that seemed to violate the laws of physics, appearing above and below the Zephyrian formation. Simultaneously, Karen explained to the terrified aliens that humans did not limit themselves to fighting in the flat plane, where most space battles took place. They had learned to use all three dimensions of space as a battlefield. They could attack from above, below, and from directions that other species never considered. Major Scott Anderson materialized aboard another Zephyrian ship with his boarding teams. The alien crew had no idea how the humans had gotten through their hull without causing a hull breach or triggering any alarms. Scott's soldiers wore armor that seemed to bend light around them, making them nearly invisible. Scott told the captured aliens that their species had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed that, because humans had not attacked anyone, they did not know how to fight. They had confused peaceful behavior with weakness. The truth was that humans were incredibly good at warfare, but they preferred to use that skill for defense rather than conquest. The chase continued for hours as human ships pursued the fleeing Zephyrians through the outer reaches of the solar system. Every time the aliens thought they had found an escape route, more human vessels would appear to block their path. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once, emerging from asteroid fields and planetary rings like ghosts. Dr. Lisa Park coordinated the pursuit from her command center on the research station near Mars. Her sensors tracked every fleeing alien ship while her computers calculated intercept courses for human hunters. She had turned the entire solar system into a trap, with sensors and weapons hidden throughout the space around Earth's star. Lisa showed the desperate Zephyrians that what they had taken for random space debris was actually a carefully constructed network of military assets, automated weapons platforms disguised as asteroids, supply depots hidden inside comets, communication relays built into pieces of space junk that had been floating in orbit for decades. Humanity had spent 50 years turning their home system into the most heavily fortified location in the galaxy. Every rock, every ice chunk, every piece of metal floating in space was potentially a weapon or a sensor or a hiding place for human warriors. Captain Rose Williams launched wave after wave of automated fighters from her factory inside Ceres. The machines poured out of the hollowed asteroid like angry insects, their programming focused on one simple task: prevent any Zephyrian ship from leaving the solar system alive. The fighter drones moved with inhuman precision and coordination. They had no fear of death because they were not alive. They felt no fatigue because they were machines. They made no mistakes because their artificial intelligence had been programmed by the greatest military minds in human history. Rose watched her creations hunt the alien fleet with satisfaction. Each drone had been built with knowledge gained from 50 years of studying Zephyrian technology and tactics. They knew exactly how to exploit every weakness in alien ship design and crew psychology. Admiral Vextar's flagship Dominator limped toward what he hoped was an escape route near Jupiter. The great planet's gravitational field would interfere with human sensors and give his ship a chance to hide among the many moons. He ordered his crew to shut down all non-essential systems and drift silently through space. The Admiral's plan might have worked against any other enemy, but the humans had been preparing for this battle longer than most of his crew had been alive. They knew every hiding place in their own star system. They had sensors positioned around every planet and major asteroid. Commander Jake Morrison's command ship appeared directly in front of the fleeing Zephyrian flagship. The Washington had been waiting in Jupiter's shadow for exactly this possibility. Jake's crew had calculated the most likely escape routes and positioned intercept forces at each one. Jake told Admiral Vextar that his journey was over. The Zephyrian invasion force had entered human space with dreams of easy conquest and slave-taking. They would be leaving as broken survivors carrying a warning to the rest of the galaxy. The few remaining alien ships that had not been destroyed or captured found themselves herded into a small area of space near the edge of the system. Human vessels surrounded them on all sides, weapons charged and ready to fire. The aliens had nowhere to run and no chance of fighting their way out. The hunters had become the hunted. The predators had become prey. The species that had conquered dozens of worlds had been defeated by the peaceful inhabitants of a single planet. Admiral Vextar, prepared to face whatever fate the humans had planned for him and his surviving crews, the most dangerous animals in the galaxy had revealed themselves, and they were not finished demonstrating their capabilities. Colonel Ben Torres stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Washington, watching the Zephyrian fleet try desperately to regroup. His ship had been classified in alien intelligence reports as a deep space exploration vessel. The Zephyrians had watched it travel slowly between planets for decades, taking pictures of distant stars and collecting space dust samples. Ben opened a communication. Channel 2, Admiral Vextar-S, flagship. The alien commander looked shocked and confused as he stared at what was clearly a military bridge. Ben smiled and began to explain the situation that the Zephyrians had stumbled into. He told Vextar that humans had a special gift for warfare. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years, learning every possible way to kill and destroy. About a century ago, human leaders had realized that all this experience might be useful against someone other than themselves, so they had gotten together and decided to prepare for visitors who might not be friendly. The asteroid belt around Earth's sun contained millions of rocks floating in space. For 30 years, the Zephyrians had watched human miners working these rocks with primitive equipment. The work had looked difficult and dangerous. Sometimes the miners would accidentally blow up entire asteroids while trying to extract metal, or the aliens had concluded that humans were very bad at space mining. Every single one of those explosions had been a weapons test. The miners had been hollowing out the largest asteroids and turning them into weapons platforms. They had built railguns inside the rocks that could accelerate projectiles to nearly the speed of light. The mining accidents had actually been experiments to see how much damage these weapons could cause. Captain Rose Williams commanded the largest installation, hidden inside the asteroid series. The Zephyrians had watched her facility for years, seeing what appeared to be a simple research station, studying the composition of space rocks. Rose had filed boring reports about mineral content and gravity measurements. The aliens had ignored her completely. When the battle began, Rose revealed that Ceres had been completely hollowed out and turned into a weapons factory. The asteroid contained manufacturing facilities that could build new ships and ammunition faster than the Zephyrians could destroy them. Launch bays opened all over the surface, releasing swarms of automated fighters that moved with inhuman precision. Rose called her installation the factory as thousands of drone ships poured out of hidden openings. Each drone was controlled by artificial intelligence that could react faster than any biological pilot. They moved in perfect formations, attacking with mathematical precision that no organic mind could match. Dr. Carl Johnson had spent 15 years on Mars pretending to study ancient ruins. The Zephyrians had read his archaeological reports about dead civilizations and lost cities. They thought he was wasting time digging in the dirt of a lifeless planet. They had no idea that he was actually building the entrances to massive underground military installations. When Carl activated his hidden systems, the surface of Mars opened like a blooming flower. Launch tubes that stretched down to the planets. Core began firing city-sized battleships into space. These vessels had been under construction for decades, built in secret factories, buried miles beneath the surface. The ships that emerged from Mars carried weapons that defied Zephyrian understanding of physics. They used gravity itself as a weapon, creating fields that could crush enemy vessels or tear them apart with invisible forces. They fired projectiles made of programmable matter, that would reconfigure themselves after impact to cause maximum damage from the inside. Major Scott Anderson led a boarding party that somehow materialized inside a Zephyrian heavy cruiser. The aliens had no idea how the humans had gotten through their shields and hull armor. Scott explained to the terrified crew that human technology was not what it appeared to be. The humans had developed matter, transportation systems that could move people and objects through solid barriers. They had gravity manipulation technology that let their ships move in ways that seemed impossible. They had energy weapons that could ignore most types of defensive shielding. All of this technology had been carefully hidden from alien observers for decades. The Zephyrian fleet had been designed to fight enemies who used conventional tactics and familiar weapons. Their shields could stop plasma beams and particle cannons. Their armor could resist kinetic projectiles and explosive warheads. Their sensors could track normal ships using standard propulsion systems. They were completely unprepared for an enemy that fought with exotic physics and impossible strategies. Captain Karen Davis commanded a strike force of ships that attacked from above the plane of the solar system. Most space battles happened in a flat disk around a star, because that was where planets and normal travel routes were located. The Zephyrians had positioned their sensors and weapons to watch for threats coming from expected directions. Karen ships came from above, where no one thought to look. They had been hiding in the empty space between star systems, using stealth technology that made them invisible to Zephyrian sensors. When they attacked, they struck from an angle that the alien fleet could not defend against. She told the confused aliens that humans did not think about space the same way other species did. Most aliens stayed close to planets and traveled along established routes. Humans treated all of space as their territory. They could attack from any direction at any time because they had learned to live and fight in 3 dimensions. Commander Jake Morrison watched the battle from his space station, which had revealed itself as a command and control center for the entire human defense network. Every ship and weapon platform in the solar system was connected through quantum communication networks that allowed instant coordination across impossible distances. The human fleet moved like a single organism with thousands of parts. When one ship was damaged, others would instantly move to cover its position. When a weakness was found in enemy defenses, every human unit would exploit it simultaneously. The individual ships were dangerous, but together they were unstoppable. The Zephyrians tried to retreat to the edge of the solar system, where they could activate their faster-than-light drives and escape. They discovered that their escape routes were blocked by human ships that had been waiting for exactly this possibility. The humans had predicted every move the aliens might make and prepared counters for all of them. Admiral Vextar realized that his invasion force had sailed into the territory of apex predators. The humans had not been hiding because they were weak. They had been hiding because they were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they had wanted their enemies to come within striking range before revealing their true nature. The peaceful explorers had shown their real faces, and those faces belonged to the ultimate warriors. The first sign that something was wrong came when Captain Steve Martinez opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian flagship. Admiral Vextar expected to see a scared human begging for mercy from the bridge of an old cargo ship. Instead, his screen showed Steve sitting in what was clearly a military command center. Behind Steve, dozens of officers worked at tactical displays, showing hundreds of contacts moving through space. Steve smiled at the alien commander. His voice was calm and cold when he spoke. He told Vextar that he was welcome to visit the human neighborhood, and he hoped the Admiral had brought plenty of friends, because he was going to need them at that moment. Every human ship in the solar system dropped their disguises. The Luna's Promise and dozens of other merchant vessels let their fake hull plating fall away. Underneath the ugly metal shells were sleek warships covered with weapon ports. The ships that had looked slow and broken suddenly moved with perfect grace and speed. The engines that had seemed weak and inefficient roared to life. The human ships accelerated so fast that any normal crew, should have been crushed by the force. But the humans inside were protected by gravity control, technology that the Zephyrians did not know existed. The ships danced through space like dolphins, swimming through water. Dr. Lisa Park appeared on every Zephyrian communication screen at the same time. She was no longer pretending to be a harmless researcher. Behind her, walls of sensors and computers tracked every alien vessel in the solar system. Lisa told Admiral Vexstar that humans had been watching his fleet since it entered the outer edge of their star system 2 weeks ago. She knew the name of every Zephyrian ship. She knew how thick their armor was and what kind of shields they used. She had studied their weapon systems and found the weak points. She knew the names of the ship captains and what they had for breakfast that morning. The humans had been preparing for this battle since before the Zephyrian ships had even left their home port. On Earth, the cities that had looked helpless and defenseless began to transform. Huge panels in the ground slid open to reveal massive weapons that had been hidden underneath. The gun barrels were as wide as subway tunnels and pointed straight up at the sky. These weapons had been built into the foundations of major cities and disguised as building supports and underground parking garages. What had looked like commercial airports and shipping ports suddenly came alive with military activity. Launch pads that had been covered with fake buildings opened like flowers. Fighter jets poured into the sky by the thousands. These were not the slow atmospheric craft that the Zephyrians had seen in their spy reports. These fighters could operate in space and move faster than most alien interceptors. Lieutenant Colonel Janet Richards commanded a squadron of fighters that had been disguised as weather research aircraft. For years, the Zephyrians had watched these planes flying slowly through Earth's atmosphere, taking pictures of clouds and measuring wind speed. The aliens thought this was a waste of time and resources. Janet's fighters dropped their sensor equipment and revealed weapons that could tear through Zephyrian shields like paper. The quantum disruption cannons had been designed specifically to defeat the energy barriers that protected alien ships. Each fighter carried enough firepower to destroy a ship 10 times its size. The Zephyrian fleet found themselves surrounded. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields revealed themselves and opened fire. Space stations that had seemed devoted to peaceful research transformed into weapons platforms. Even the small mining shuttles that had been ignored as harmless suddenly sprouted missile launchers and beam weapons. Admiral Vexstar watched his tactical display fill with red warning markers. His fleet of 200 ships was facing over 1,000 human vessels. Worse, the human weapons were cutting through his defenses like they were made of cardboard. His shields, which had stopped every enemy weapon for decades, were completely useless against this new technology. Captain Rose Williams commanded what the Zephyrians had thought was a small research outpost on one of Earth's moons. The building looked like a simple laboratory with a few scientists studying rock samples. When the fighting began, Rose activated hidden systems that had been waiting underground for 20 years. The research station was actually the entrance to a massive underground complex. Launch bays opened in the lunar surface and disgorged hundreds of fighters and bombers. Manufacturing facilities that had been disguised as mining operations began producing ammunition faster than the could believe. The moon itself had been turned into a fortress and weapons factory. Dr. Carl Johnson had been working on Mars for 15 years as an archaeologist. The Zephyrians had watched him dig holes in the red dirt and collect old rocks. They thought he was studying the dead planet's ancient history. They were right about the studying part, but wrong about everything else. Carl had been building underground military bases, disguised as archaeological dig sites. When the battle began, these sites revealed themselves as launch facilities for long-range missiles. The weapons rose from hidden silos and streaked toward the Zephyrian fleet at incredible speed. Each missile carried enough explosive power to crack open an asteroid. The aliens realized that they had been completely fooled. Every piece of intelligence their spies had gathered over 50 years had been carefully manufactured by human military planners. The failed weapons tests had actually been successful experiments. The exploding space stations had been controlled demolitions to test new kinds of bombs. The weak human defenses had been elaborate theater performed for the benefit of alien observers. Commander Nick Thompson led a group of ships that had been pretending to be deep space exploration vessels. The Zephyrians had watched these ships travel slowly to the outer planets, taking pictures and collecting scientific data. The journey had taken months using what appeared to be primitive engines. When the battle started, Nick's ships revealed engines that could travel faster than light. They had been moving slowly on purpose to maintain their disguise. Now, they surrounded the Zephyrian fleet from all directions, cutting off any hope of escape. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, like a pack of wolves hunting prey. The trap had been 50 years in the making. Every human in the solar system had been playing a part in the greatest deception in galactic history. The species that had seemed weak and divided had actually been united in preparation for this moment. They had been waiting patiently for someone to make the mistake of underestimating them. Admiral Vextar realized with growing horror that his fleet was doomed. The humans had not just prepared defenses, they had prepared a slaughter. The peaceful species had revealed themselves as the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, and they had been hungry for a very long time. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the big window of the space station, looking out at the dark sky. He could see the alien ships coming closer to Earth. They looked like metal sharks swimming through space, their lights blinking red and white. Jake had been waiting for this day for 20 years. Every human on the station had been waiting for this day. The alien ships belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. They were known across the galaxy for taking over weak planets and making the people work as slaves. The Zephyrians had been watching Earth for 50 years through their spy satellites and listening devices. They heard human radio shows and saw human news reports. They watched human space missions that seemed to fail all the time. They saw explosions in space that looked like accidents. They heard Earth leaders talking about peace and friendship with aliens. Jake smiled as he watched the enemy fleet get closer. The Zephyrians thought they knew everything about humans. They thought Earth people were weak and scared. They thought human weapons were basic and broke easily. They thought human spaceships were slow and ugly. They were very wrong about all of these things. Dr. Amy Chen sat in the communication room of the space station. She was the head of something called the Civilian Defense Initiative. This was supposed to be a group of scientists and peace lovers who wanted to talk to aliens instead of fighting them. Amy looked at the script in her hands. She had practiced reading these words many times. She pressed the button to send a message to the alien ships. Her voice shook with fear as she spoke into the microphone. She told the aliens that Earth had 12 billion people who just wanted to live in peace. She said humans had no real weapons and no way to fight back. She begged the alien commander to please not hurt the people of Earth. She said humans would give the aliens anything they wanted if they promised not to kill everyone. The message was a complete lie, while Amy was pretending to be scared. General Peter Hayes was sitting deep underground in a secret military base. The base was hidden under a mountain and had been built 40 years ago. Peter looked at the screens showing alien ships all around Earth. He smiled and pressed a red button on his desk. The button sent a secret message to thousands of human soldiers hiding all over the solar system. The message was simple. It said Operation Sleeping Giant was starting now. Every human military unit had to get ready for the real fight. All over the space around Earth, things started to change. For 30 years, humans had been pretending to mine rocks in the asteroid belt. The Zephyrians watched human workers using old machines to dig for metal and ice. The work looked hard and slow. The human miners looked poor and tired. Sometimes their equipment would break and explode. The aliens thought humans were very bad at space mining, but the miners were not really miners. They were military engineers. They had been hollowing out big rocks and filling them with weapons. The explosions the aliens saw were not accidents. They were weapons tests. The humans were learning how to build guns that could shoot across space and hit targets very far away. Captain Steve Martinez was pretending to be a merchant ship captain. His ship Luna's Promise looked like a beat-up old cargo hauler. The paint was chipped, and the engines made loud noises. Steve had been flying around the solar system for 15 years, carrying supplies between planets. The Zephyrians had scanned his ship many times and decided it was harmless. Steve was actually a military commander. His ship was full of weapons and soldiers. The ugly hull was just a disguise. Under the fake metal plates was a warship that could move faster than anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Dr. Lisa Park worked on a research station near Mars. She spent her days looking at space dust and taking pictures of distant stars. Her reports were very boring and full of scientific words that meant nothing important. The Zephyrian spies who read her work thought she was wasting her time on useless projects. Lisa was actually running the most advanced spy network in human history. Her research station was packed with sensors that could track alien ships from billions of miles away. She had been watching the Zephyrian fleet since it left their home planet 3 months ago. She knew exactly how many ships they had, what kind of weapons they carried, and how fast they could move. On Earth, the major cities looked scared and helpless. The government buildings flew white flags of surrender. Military bases looked empty and abandoned. The few human warships that still flew around space were calling back to Earth. It looked like the humans were giving up without even trying to fight. This was exactly what the humans wanted the aliens to think. Under the ground in every major city, huge weapons had been built into the very foundations. The weapons were hidden under fake buildings and disguised as subway tunnels. Launch pads for fighter jets were covered with shopping malls and parking lots. Underground factories had been making ammunition and spaceships for decades. Admiral Vextar commanded the Zephyrian invasion fleet from his flagship Dominator. He was very pleased with how easy this conquest was going to be. His spy reports showed that humans had weak technology and no stomach for real war. The human surrender message proved that they knew they could not win. Vextar decided he would take half the human population as slaves and kill the rest as an example to other weak species. The Admiral sent orders to his captains to move into attack formation around Earth. He wanted to destroy a few cities first, to show the humans that resistance was hopeless. Then he would land troops and start taking prisoners. The whole operation should take less than a week. Vextar had no idea that he was flying into the most elaborate trap in galactic history. Every human on every hidden base in disguised warship was holding their breath and waiting for the signal to begin the real fight. The Zephyrians were about to learn that peaceful did not mean weak, and that humans were the most dangerous hunters in the galaxy.